Our next speaker has amazing shoes. You will see that. Most importantly, and this is cool, we like to wander the beach looking for sand dollars. That's pretty cool. I mean, she was looking for sand dollars. That doesn't make much sense. I'm sorry. I don't know, I had a certain yen for that joke. What? I had two of them. You got that one? There you go. That one hit the mark. Oh! There we go. Whoa, you got it. Lira. All right, so we want to, that's pretty cool what she does. Also, she rides bikes in costume, and she says she's the best lanterne-rouge. And do you know what the lanterne-rouge is? I'll give you the hint. Any football fans in here? Any football fans? You? Who's Mr. Irrelevant? Last pick in the draft. The lanterne-rouge is the last person in the back of the bike ride. Right? But that's okay. When you see her, though, you're going to know she's all about the business. Ladies and gentlemen, bang your hands together for Kathleen McMahon. That's a Cabo bear. Okay.
May I have that? Reach. All right. Welcome to the carnival, actually, to the beach. Okay, so everybody, building a design system, this is noisy. Building a design system feels a lot like beachcombing. So what is beachcombing? I was asked this question when I was overseas. People didn't know what beachcombing is. So basically, I equated to treasure hunting on the beach. And so that's me, anytime I have free time, going to the beach and in Massachusetts, and you can find like just really interesting things. This is Plum Island, Massachusetts. So like really interesting things on the beach, huge shells, lots of so many shells. As you can see, I will spend hours on the beach barefoot most months until my feet freeze. And my favorite thing to find are sand dollars. And they are these perfect little fragile pieces of beauty. And get back to here. These pieces of perfection, I love them, but you have to handle them with care, or they will break under pressure, the slightest bit of pressure. For example, this was the first sand dollar that I found last year at Cranes Beach. And I think Todd Libby would know this one. It was greenhead fly season. So they were like, think of like really aggressive horse flies. So I like found a sand dollar, washed the beach, and I'm like, oh, I'm gonna take a picture of this sand dollar, and right on my arm. There goes, greenhead fly bites me, and just did this, and there it is. I broke it. So I don't know if you can hear it. Nope, that's okay. So basically, it was intact. The greenheads bit me, and I broke it. So it was frustrating. But this is the same thing. I never tire of searching for these. And when I bring them home, my cat, loves to watch. My cat Otis loves to watch me dry them, and also be the center of attention. So I think design systems, which bears repeating twice, are perfectly fragile treasures, same as a sand dollar. Good morning, still morning. Good morning, I'm Kathleen McMahon. I'm here to tell you about the Beachcomber's Guide to Type-Safe Design Systems. And a little bit about me. You can find me on Blue Sky, Mastodon, Twitter, Instagram, GitHub, Resource 11, anywhere you can find it, that's where I am. I'm an engineer, designer, and speaker. Those are my cats, Thor and Otis. They sometimes make appearances. And I work in design systems. They are always the hotness. I love them. I love working on them, especially you would too if you like herding kittens, because that's what it feels like working on a design system. I've worked on a few design systems like O'Reilly Media, Northwestern Mutual, Launch Darkly, most recently Electronic Arts. And when you work on design systems, you have to get very familiar with working with fragile pieces, and finding strategies to curate strength in your system that will make your system successful. For example, at a previous job, we had a team that we had a multi-brand design system, okay? And we had set up some nice patterns, some nice typings, and the teams were breaking. They were misusing our components. So similar to fragile sand dollars, fragile code patterns can cause beach drift in your design system. So here on the left, so we had multi-themes in multiple color theme support in our tokens library and our component library. So for example, to like hide, the guilty here, we're going to use cat meow. So like maybe we had a cat meow, cat purr, cat squeak theme name, and cat hiss. We got a Slack message that, hey, the new theme isn't showing up, what's going on? I looked in the team's code base. I noticed they were hard coding their own type alias for a string literal union. So that could be problematic. Eventually, they started using, our dynamically generated theme, our type, Josh, I have it. It's coming to my brain for a minute. We dynamically generated this array of string literals for whenever we added a new theme. We had some tooling that would walk through every single one of our themes, grab the name of the theme, and put it in this array and define it as a const. And then we could, so we could export a const of this object of string literals, but then we could also export a type alias of the theme using the type of the theme values of that array. And using these two patterns, when the teams can import these two patterns, whenever they get the updates to our system, they always have the current names of the existing themes. So nothing breaks for them. No more hard coding. And I love duplicate slides when I'm like messing with my slides. But what do I mean by design tokens? If you haven't heard about design tokens, they're not like JWT or JOT tokens or anything else. These are design decisions codified in code. And type tokens, my mouth is dry. Type tokens can, when you type your tokens, you can catch bugs more easily before they go into production, which is great. For example, say you had this CSS variable and you didn't have any TypeScript bindings to it, and you put in, and you type, like, what if it's supposed to be like var space large, or if, space LG, and you mistyped it? It's not going to show up until QA because there's no type safety. But if you had something, over on as an example, just using style components, if you defined your tokens, your token source of truth, and then output it through all your tooling, and got this variable, when you add it to your code, you are going to, if it's incorrect, you're going to get an error. There is a time to invest in type tokens, though. One, do you have a design system? And is it multi-brand? If it's multi-brand, that's a good time to do it. If you're trying to do support some accessibility support in your system, definitely do it there. If you're just creating an MVP and your tokens really aren't established, don't bother there. Unless you are creating an MVP and using an already established design system. Use that design system in your MVP, and you'll still have that type safety. Now, your type safety. For example, you can use, for like CSS, you can use Tailwind. It has a really great type configuration. You can use Style Dictionary to create type definitions for your variables. To use them with PostCSS and Sass. And same with Vanilla CSS. Vanilla CSS is a little harder. It's Style Components loves TypeScript, so that's another option. But I believe, what is it, Emotion? Is it Emotion that's getting deprecated, or is it Style Components? One of those two is not really going to be maintained anymore. But you can add your type safety in there. So before, even if you were hard coding your elements there, afterwards, when you have your type tokens, your Seashore isn't experiencing any like broken sand dollars and drift, and your TypeScript compiler will enforce alignment. This is not syntax error, so it's like if you're like not following your type scheme, TypeScript will catch this for you. And so when you have a workflow in your code base for tokens, you can have one source of truth and have many outputs for these tokens. For example, sometimes designers establish their design tokens in Figma variables in it, and they'll export it to Token Studio or even the Token Studio plugin, which can make an output to JSON, which can be run through Style Dictionary, and which that can be output to all these different transforms or different, like CSS, SAS, TypeScript output, JSON output, all these different outputs for you. So this keeps your styling and your types aligned. It's pretty cool. The things that types tokens will catch, your misspelled keys. Anything that you're trying to override, it will be catched. And you can also have it to catch like color accessibility issues. So without types, things will fail silently. They will render incorrectly, and you'll have to catch QA. With types, they'll fail at it could fail at compile time. You will be blocked from overriding things that can't be overridden, and you can get flags for low contrast colors to fix them right away. Now, there are philosophies on interface versus type aliases and how to use them in your design system. So interfaces, which are personally my favorite, it describes shapes. If you're familiar with React, think of the prop types object. It's very similar to that, where you can define your props, define the type that is, the type that prop is, like say it is the name. The name could be a string. You could say if it's optional or not. So similar with that is interface. Basically, you can extend them. They can stay pretty generic. Type aliases is another way to, you can use a type alias for components where you need to, you have like very specific variants, and then you want your component to do a very specific option that is just for that variant. This will help, it basically helps you keep everything aligned, and my brain just went. But pretty much, if you can, use interfaces first, use types when you have to get really variant driven with certain special features for your components. For example, let's look at a card and an alert. A card, it's pretty predictable. A card usually has a box. It's a box, and a lot of times it has a title and has children, right? Those things will always be in a card if you're using, that type of thing. Right now, of course, they're required, so you'll never have an empty box. So that is a good use case for an interface. For an alert, which I'm going to dig into more, you could create different types. Right there, you're seeing like different variants in my alert type props. But in the alerts, you could have a warning alert, an error alert, and a success alert. You could have different types for that, and I can show you how you can build these up together. Some teams in their code bases have they set up their linting rules to align with their personal development preferences. One of them is banning interface, which makes me a little allergic, but where it's like, type all the things, extend all the things, and it's just overly complex, in my opinion. But the intent and when you're using your types matters. interfaces are great for anything that you just need a generic, like just a shape and just define your types. When you need those specific options, that is the case. That's the not an edge case, but the special case when you start using a type alias. When I'm talking about linting rules, I've seen linting rules where the minute you add an interface, you get a TypeScript warning. Like, you can't do this, you must change it to a type. You're like, oh, please don't make me do this. You can flip that around and say, you know what? And thanks, Josh. I'm a little side note. If you want to learn about TypeScript, Josh writes an awesome book, and it explains like everything in extreme detail very well. So if you like to dig into the whys, I'll put that a link later along with other links. But good book to watch, read, or Kindle. But you can set your linting rules up to say, hey, interfaces are great, and if you're doing type, it's an exception. Maybe you could say, put a warning or something up, like, do you really want to use a type? Should you? It's helpful, but adding your linting rules for your preferences is good, and it can help reduce the decision fatigue of type or interface, type or interface. So default to type. Now, back to notes. So basically, when you're purposely intent, it keeps your components intact. However, sometimes you do need to blend both interface type aliases. For example, if you have some shared props, but you also want to give, you want to make some specific variants where people will not misuse things for accessibility reasons. For example, make sure I have it in my notes. Yes. Okay. This one. Say you have a card, and it's just an interface prop, and it has, it supports SVGs and a photo image URL, right? Supports an ARIA label, and it supports an alt attribute. And even if you document, proper usage, not everyone reads the docs. Even though you make them better every time, not everyone reads the docs, mutter. So developers that really are meaning well and want to make something better might pass in a photo URL and an alt attribute, ARIA label, or both. Alt, so the usage patterns gets fuzzy. So the way to do that is skip the messy one, which says adding guardrails for the never prop. And look here, if you can create two separate interface types first, and use never to forbid props from being added. For example, you could have a photo card props where you have media type SVG, and the SVG could be a React node. It can support ARIA labels because with SVG, sometimes you're creating icon buttons or icon, like something that needs to be paired with non-visible text, but also possibly an ARIA label if it's an informative SVG. But you can make sure that the photo URL and the alt attribute can never be passed in to this component, ever. It'll just create an error. Conversely, for SVG, you can actually, for SVG card props, when ignore the error here, it should be SVG, SVG, and then photo URL, never. Yes, flip it. But yeah, this is the code example for a photo URL. You can use a photo URL and an alt and a fancy, what was that, interlude? That was awesome. Okay. This is the SVG one. So SVG is a React node and an ARIA label, and you can never pass in a photo image URL or an alt. And for the photo one, you can never pass in an SVG or an ARIA label. So you are purposely pairing a photo URL and an alt attribute together, never misusing ARIA labels with a photo, because you should be using an alt attribute if it's informative, and using an empty alt if it is decorative. Once you create those two misnamed interface props, then you can define another type alias discriminated union type alias, which is the variant media card props is either a photo media or SVG media. So it supports A or B. And so if you start passing in SVG, it won't support any of the photo URLs or alt. And if you're passing in a photo, it will not allow guardrail you from doing, like misusing your components. And then you have some nice accessibility guardrails put in. So basically, you can't have invalid combinations, and you can have correct accessibility attributes, which can be hard to do at all. But I'm really excited or angst-filled about this particular one. The anchoring pattern, which is my all-time least favorite. How many people has created a button as a link? I see one person. You're guilty. Or a link variant button, right? Please no. Please don't do that. Please stop. It's about as delicious as combining Jell-O and shrimp. And I have, fun fact, I have successfully found a way to get this slide into every single talk since 2019. So success, check. Yes. So please don't do that. Please don't do this. Because it disguises the intent of the component. The button as a link, you're like, if you're trying to troubleshoot, it's like, button, link, what? Hey. Also, it's breaking the material honesty of the component that's being rendered. Yes, you're never going to get rid of that call to action pattern that has been designed that it's a buttony looking link. But, ew. It stresses John out, because John's 26 and is just really stressed about developing. And me every day whenever you put a button as link. See? Look at that gray hair. Right, Todd? Yeah. So the reason why I have an issue with this is because of the use of polymorphic components. So polymorphic components allow you to add an as prop to your component. And what is an as prop render? Any of the supported HTML elements. What could go wrong? Right? Because, there's only a few HTML elements. Sarcasm. So a lot of people will, developers will use, hey, let's use a polymorphic component, throw it all in there. It's so flexible. This is so awesome. But this is where it can be very fragile because it can break accessibility. This became an accessibility talk. This is, using the polymorphic prop. It's just problematic. Don't do that. For example, this is Atlassian. Is that a button or a link? That's a link. Yes. But do this instead. Button, click me, link. Style this button. That's a Boolean prop. So that communicates to the developer, it's still a link, but it's styled as a button, but it's a link. So that's a happy medium, or a class name button. So that's a better way to do something. Boolean prop versus just hacky-bo-backy. Whoop, back. Nope. Boop, boop, boop. 3. There. Here. So do this, please. I went into just the dev tools to just show what you could do. On the hover, I add an underline. So it looks like a button still, but when you hover it, right, it looks like a link. It communicates that it's a link. You could have, so buttony look, but it's a link. It's communicating it is a link. So you could also flip that around, and have it like underlined. Some designers might not like that it's underlined and filled, but it's like, hey, when you hover it, do this. It's communicating that as a link, because it will announce as a link to a screen reader. You should also communicate it. And also, if you're using a screen reader, you also might still have some vision left, so hearing it and seeing it is important. When I did this talk, some people had some questions about this. They're like, but are there exceptions, right? Like underlining links and everything. The exceptions down, like here at the bottom of Google, this group of nav in the footer are a bunch of links together, probably an order of list of links. Because they are together, they don't have to be like underlined styled all the time together in this group because of the context. It's in a footer, it's a nav group, it's at the bottom, or even at the header of the page. When it's inline, inline block of text, yes, it should be underlined. But these are like some of these happy patterns and the exceptions. But again, button should it be a button? And a link should be a link should be a link. So say it with me. Button should be a button. And yes. Yes. And compile time, those red squiggly lines, beats runtime every time. So runtime is QA, Jira, and you get a ticket and a patch and deploy. But compile time, you get a red squiggly, and you can fix it before you commit it. So that those guardrails stop your drift earlier. And when you share your types, you can scale your system more easily because you publish your types once. Every app will consume the same types, and the drift is reduced, and everyone's aligned with the latest updates as long as they're installing the updates for the design system. So to wrap up, tokens prevent drift, and properly typed props prevent misuse. And compile time will scale the confidence in your code. So again, I hope you enjoy your beachcombing and go out and beachcomb yourself and go beachcomb your design system. Gracias. There he is. Otis. I call him Bobo. This is Catus interruptus. Whenever I try to take a photo, he jumps up. So that's just one haul, about 100 sand dollars, but that's just one day. And some mussels and moon shells. Ta-da.
Wow. Oh, that's so cool. All right, give it up. Y'all, it was awesome.